What's up? God bless you guys. It's Jonathan again, and basically in this video I'm going to talk about the differences between Christianity and other religions. Why? Because I've heard these theories that Jesus was supposedly copied by ancient Egyptian religion that existed about 2,000 or more years before Christ was actually born. And basically I want to get into this because I know that there are some similarities, but I know there are huge differences as well. Like, for example, the first person we're going to compare Jesus to and his life to is the ancient Egyptian god Horus. Horus is known to be the god of the sky. He is also known to be the god of the sun and the moon, because to the Egyptians the sun and the moon were in the sky. And basically, you see that eye that's on the top of the pyramid of the dollar bill? That's supposedly the eye of Horus. Some people believe it's the eye of God, some people believe it's the eye of the devil, but some people also believe it's the eye of Horus, which in reality is the devil. So let's just get this clear real quick. We're going to compare the differences between Horus and Jesus. Now basically Jesus, he was given birth by a divine form. He was born through a virgin through the power of the Holy Spirit. And basically, you can see the similarity with Horus. There are some occasions where Horus, he is given birth by a divine fire that enters his mother, Isis. And basically, that divine fire initiates Isis to give birth to Horus. But there's also some contradictions, because this is just one of many stories, one of different stories. Another story on Horus's birth was the fact that his father Osiris was chopped up into pieces and he was spread across the land, but his mother Osiris took all his pieces and put them together, and she resurrected him through magic. But the thing is, she couldn't find his penis. His penis was in the Nile River, which is in Egypt, and it was swallowed by a catfish. So instead, she had to give him a new golden penis in order so that she could have a child with Osiris. And that's where you get Horus. So there are two different stories that talk about Horus's birth compared to Jesus, who only has one story that's remained the same. Basically, another similarity would be that Horus was considered as the god of the Egyptians. He was considered one of the gods. If anything, Horus is the incarnation of the pharaoh. The Egyptians believed that the pharaoh was basically Horus in the flesh, and that when the pharaoh dies, he becomes Horus's father, Osiris. Now, we can see in a way the same thing with Jesus, that the people worship Jesus as if he was God. Even though the Bible says that he was God in the flesh, people worship Jesus as if he was God. So right there you see another similarity. Also, Horus was baptized, and he started preaching, from what I'm familiar with, at the age of 33. You can see the same thing with Jesus. Jesus was baptized, and at the age of 33 he began his ministry. And you can see the similarities. Another similarity would be that, I'm not sure if it's Horus or if it's Osiris, but one of them died and he resurrected. In a way, that I guess that would be Horus, because when the pharaoh dies, he doesn't become Horus no more, but then he comes back. When another pharaoh comes, basically it represents Horus coming back to life. Jesus obviously died and he came back to life on the third day. Now we're gonna see the differences. Basically, in Horus's case, there wasn't no hate against him, because he was worshipped throughout all of Egypt, and he had a competition with this other god by the name of Set, and Set and him will always fight, and they would go against each other to try to conquer Egypt, and then in order to determine who was going to be god of Egypt, they actually had a boat race, and the boat had to be made out of stone. So they had to have a boat race with a boat made out of stone, and basically Set used a real stone boat, but Horus, he had a wooden boat and he painted it to look like it was made out of stone. So Horus ended up winning while Set's boat ended up sinking. And the thing is, um, it's just weird because Horus and Set, they had a kind of a weird enemy relationship because Set wanted to rape Horus. He wanted to have sex with Horus, and basically Horus took Set's testicle, he ripped it out, he threw it, so that he wouldn't be excremented with his semen. But Horus knew that Set loved lettuce, so he basically spilled his semen on lettuce, and Set ate the lettuce, and he also ate the semen that was on it. So when they went to the other gods of Egypt to see who was going to be god of Egypt, you know, Set, they basically asked Set's semen to speak up, but his semen was heard in the river because that's where his semen was thrown into. But Horus, his semen was found inside of Set, and it spoke, and basically he became God, you know. And we obviously don't see any of this with Jesus. Jesus, first of all, never sinned, so therefore you could already take that out of, you know, equality with the story of Horus. At the same time, Jesus was a real man. There's no evidence of Horus being a real person, a real being. He's just a myth. You know, there are actual historians outside the Bible that testify that Jesus was a real man. Like the Jewish historian Josephus, he talks about Jesus in his book The Antiquities. Or the Roman historian Tacitus, he talks about Jesus suffering the most brutal of deaths, which is crucifixion. And that's another controversy, you know, the fact that Jesus was crucified but Horus wasn't. You know, I know that in the Zekas movie it says that Horus was crucified. That's not consistent because crucifixion didn't exist in the time of the ancient Egyptians. You know, crucifixion was started through the Assyrians and the Persians, and it was perfected in a way by the Romans, not by the Egyptians. So right there's an inconsistency. Basically, Jesus, he never sinned. He came here, he performed miracles, he healed people, he brought people back to life from the dead, and then he died, resurrected, and while he was dead for those 3 days, he went to hell and he snatched the keys of Hades and death. And you don't see that similarity with Horus. Horus, it doesn't mention any of that with them. They don't believe in hell in the way that we believe. They believe that you could reincarnate the ancient Egyptians. Another important fact would be that there's another guy who actually lived in the time of Jesus that and a lot of people compared him to Jesus, but he was walking around in India. Jesus was around Israel. He was in Israel. So basically the guy's name was Apollonius, and he was born around the time that Jesus was doing his ministry and that the disciples were walking around. And basically it is said that Apollonius was able to rebuke demons, he was able to heal people, raise them up from the dead, and that he was also killed and he rose again. And the thing is, Apollonius's biography was written over 150 years after he died though. You know, so right there, that's a huge gap, and that is beyond a person's life expectancy. You know, we don't know anybody who could live 150 years now and even then. You know, and basically the person that wrote his biography was a man by the name of Philostratus, and the reason why he wrote it was because there was an empress who loved Apollonius. She basically was a disciple of his, like in the sense that she followed him and followed his teachings and whatnot, even though he was already dead. And she basically wanted to make a temple dedicated to him, and she told Philostratus, look, you need to make something, you need to make a story that is going to talk about Apollonius. And Philostratus, he probably saw this as an opportunity to become rich, to get money, and to, you know, be powerful. So of course he's going to go ahead and compare Apollonius to Jesus, because Jesus was born before Apollonius, his ministry started before Apollonius, and basically Christianity was spreading throughout the East rapidly. So I'm pretty sure he heard of rumors, and he basically incorporated it into the story of Apollonius, because they wanted somebody to be equal to the Christ, because nobody else could be like Jesus, you know. But the thing is, there's only one source that talks about him, There's only one source that talks about Apollonius, and it's like saying that I'm going to believe a random stranger's testimony without having any more proof, that I'm just going to believe solely that one person. But in reality, compare that one source to the Greek manuscripts that are provided to us for the New Testament, which is the time of Jesus until the book of Revelations. Basically, there are over 5,000 Greek manuscripts, you know, and there are thousands of other manuscripts in other languages, and all these manuscripts are found in different areas of the East. There are manuscripts, the earliest manuscripts were actually found in Egypt, and they were found in different parts of Palestine, and you know, they all say the same thing. It all is consistent, even though they're found in different locations and they're from different time zones, you know. And one of the most, I guess, important ones would be the Dead Sea Scrolls, which were found in the Qumran Valley, a couple miles from Jerusalem. Because the thing is, people claim that the Bible's been corrupted through the medieval times, and King James corrupted it, and all these people just interpreted the Bible how they wanted to. The Bible's legit, even through all those interpretations and translations, because now those Dead Sea Scrolls were found in 1947 in the Qumran Valley. They were found in a cave with and they were found inside of these huge jars. And these are basically scrolls that come from the early centuries. You know, they've lasted that long. And if you see pictures of them, they're kind of torn up. But when scholars and theologians translate those manuscripts, and they see that it's real consistent with what our Bible says, even though it was translated and interpreted through time. Apollonius, he only had one source, Philostratus, and you can't even take his testimony valid because there's no historians that talk about Apollonius. Only Philostratus talks about him in his writings, and that's it. But there are historians and there are other eyewitnesses outside the Bible that talk about Jesus, that they prove that Jesus was a real person that really walked on the earth, compared to Horus the sun god and Apollonius. These guys, they're just made up, you know, and they were made by the human idea. Apollonius probably did exist, but his works are not proven. Jesus, his works are proven. Josephus claims that Jesus performed miracles and he did many good works. You know, and there are outside sources from the Bible that claim that Jesus was a sorcerer. And you can find this in the Jewish book called the Talmud, which basically it was finished around 500 AD, but it was kind of started in 200 AD, and it basically talks about Jesus being a sorcerer and doing a lot of miracles through dark magic. So they're basically admitting that Jesus did do miracles, but that he did it in the wrong way, you know. And we're going to get into a lot more in the next video, but this is just to give you a brief understanding that Jesus was a real person and that there is evidence that what he did was factual, and that the other gods and the other sources that supposedly Christianity stole from, that's not a valid claim. So I pray that you do your own research and that you stay tuned. God bless. Platanos.
The creation's complete, and every moment's like a day on the beach, filled with His glory, a place of peace, with God, man, and beast parlaying in the breeze. Wait a minute, what's this hate that I see? A rebellion in the heavens, the arrangement is breached. He's kicked out of His presence, Satan's released, and everything changed when He became the snake in the tree.